2 months, 12 months, that is the fight over tax cuts, not whether to extend, but how long and how to pay for it, and then just sort of cave on what was essentially the issue that you torpedoed 5 days ago. That's really where we stand here. What do our Fox Business All-Stars think of this? Jonathan Honig, Francis Newton, Richard Brodsky. Richard?
It's a rout for the Republican right, and whether you agree with them on the merits or not, you cannot conduct politics as though you're defined by the most extreme and aggressive element.
You mean a rout in a negative sense for them? They were routed.
They were routed, and they were routed by sort of Obama's cool, which didn't work politically for so many months. All of a sudden, he looks like the grown-up in the room. He looks like the one who had a philosophical and procedural position that was worth maintaining. This doesn't get any better for Democrats.
For
Democrats.
But so they can build on this. Jonathan, what about the notion raised by our guest, earlier, that people will forget about this? It will be ancient news.
Well, Neil, what's ancient news is how integrated and how much a part all these entitlement schemes have become as part of our society. We can't imagine a time before the payroll tax. We can't imagine a time before Social Security. I think, unfortunately, that's what Republicans probably missed here, is an opportunity not to quibble about whether it should be this percentage or that percentage or how long the tax is exempt, but why do we have to have an entitlement state which requires these massive tax redistributions in the first place? There's no question, however, that government controls and government breeds more government. The bigger it gets, the more we need these programs to keep the whole system going.
One thing I've noticed, Francis, covering these, brinkmanship type of theatrics, is that in the end, the final deal you get isn't all that dramatic or all that really seismic moving, for want of a better expression. The debt deal that really didn't shave that much debt, the avoid a government shutdown deal that really was pennies on the dollar from what they were originally talking, and now even this. So I guess what I'm getting at is, if you're a Tea Partier and you came in elected to make dramatic change, and again, this is the stuff that you are witnessing, if not through no action supporting or being told not to create waves, are you bummed?
Yeah, I imagine so. I can remember just a year ago we were sitting there together before Christmas talking about the unemployment benefits extension. It's the same thing. I mean, here's the thing. As a Tea Partier, I think that we do have an incentive for radical change. I think we have a problem mathematically with the fact that if you take an entire system and you make such a radical change, it's really hard to predict where it's going to hit each variable of the system. As far as this 2-month tax deal, I mean, yes, it's very nice that Americans were encouraged to spend, encouraged to be consumers, and now they don't have to add this to their credit card bill at the end of Christmas. However, is it a permanent solution? No. Temporary? Temporary based on what? Temporary based on an economic recovery? Based on what? Where's our private sector? I mean, this really is the problem. And as far as Obama is concerned, I think we need leadership, not political incentives. Everybody with a brain can see what he's doing here. He knows this market has to crash again, as any technical analysis does. And analyst does, and I'm telling you, he's going to make it look like it was the Republicans' fault. And it is not, Neil. It's in the writing.
Whatever
already.
the reality is of this philosophical difference of how people want to handle tax policy in entitlement states, fair enough. It's a good debate to have. But if in the middle of that you act out politically, take a very strong position, when you get a little opposition, fold up your tents and go home, credibility suffers. It is possible to do a technical analysis.
Don't you find it ironic that credibility suffered for the party that was saying, let's go back to what we originally agreed to, a 1-year extension?
If you're not,
we can go into the nuances, but
if you're going to take a strong position, then stick with it. If you're going to take a strong position, then fold up when you get a little pressure, you look silly. So put aside these philosophical debates for a second. They're important, but that's not what happened today. What happened today was a major political shift in which the Republican extreme is being isolated from the perceived interests of the great majority of Americans. Perceived interests.
Jonathan, real quick.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm just disappointed, Neil, that the idea of going back to the constitutional principles on which this country was founded is now considered extreme in this country. I mean, that's considered like so way out there to actually follow the Constitution, of which, of course, Social Security and all the entitlement states that these taxes fund play no integral part.
I agree, Jonathan.
All right, well, we will get you all back to argue indiscriminately again. In the meantime, forget throwing Granny off a